Welcome back to the Lumiose Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we're going to be talking about every major hint we've had to Pokemon Legends ZA, or specifically like a Kalos game coming up. It should not really be a secret by now that Pokemon likes to hint ahead. You know, sometimes this can be seen in data, sometimes this can actually be seen with in-game teasers, maps, characters, all that stuff. They've been doing this for a while now. Instead of just looking at Scarlet and Violet, which is the game that last came out, you know, before Pokemon Legends ZA, we're actually going to be looking all the way back to Pokemon Legends Arceus as well as Scarlet and Violet, because since this team, it's the Team B as we're kind of calling them, that's making Pokemon Legends ZA and made Pokemon Legends Arceus, I imagine that there'd be just as much hints and teases in Pokemon Legends Arceus as they would be in Scarlet and Violet, maybe even more if I'm honest. Before we get into it, I do want to say that we don't know that these things are necessarily hints. Sometimes Pokemon's going to put stuff in their game that references other things. Like, for example, there are pictures of Alola in one of the classrooms in Scarlet and Violet. That doesn't mean Alola's coming next. So these may not all be hints, but I just want to list everything Kalos related in the last few games so that we get an idea of maybe some things that are hints, or at least know what to look for in Pokemon Legends ZA to kind of, oh, hey, that's that thing that we saw before. So first, in Pokemon Legends Arceus, we have a good example of what I meant by sometimes things are hidden in code. I don't know data mining very well, so I'm going to explain this as best as I can. I apologize if it's a little off, but basically there's data for some Mega Evolutions, and the way Mega Evolutions are listed are like its alternate form. So like a Mega Sceptile is listed as like an alternate form of Sceptile, and basically these things were scrubbed in Scarlet and Violet, or excuse me, in Sword and Shield, which did not have Megas. However, in Legends Arceus, these were kind of re-added. Now, obviously you can't Mega Evolve in Legends Arceus, but I think it's a good chance that this is because the team that was making Legends Arceus was going ahead and laying in the foundation for them to make Legends ZA with Mega Evolution returning. Some more in-your-face references to Kalos in Pokemon Legends Arceus was, first off, the fact that 2 Kalos Pokemon actually received some regional variants in this game. We had Goodra and Avalugg, specifically Sliggoo and Goodra, so really 3 if you want to think about it, because Sliggoo, Goodra, and Avalugg. These are 3 Pokemon that were from Kalos. They got a regional variant in Hisui. Probably doesn't mean anything, but I wanted to throw that in there because why the heck not? We also had some ancestors in Legends Arceus who were ancestors to characters that are from the Kalos region. Now, this isn't that crazy because we have kind of some ancestors from all over. People speculate that Laventon could be Leon's ancestor. People speculate that Melly could be the ancestor to Penny, and by default Peony. And then of course there are some ones that like we kind of know for sure, right? Like the kid, I think his name is Leon, the kid who is the guardian of Cleavor is the ancestor to Clay, and by default also Lacey. So we know these things. It's not that crazy, but there are some examples of Kalos ancestors here. So first off, we have Paulina is an ancestor to Diantha. Also, you could make the argument that, you know, she does have a boyfriend, so Iskin. So maybe, you know, if we're to assume that, in fact, I think they're married. Are they married? Regardless, if these two end up together and have a kid, and that kid is Diantha's, you know, ancestor, then Iskin too is, while he doesn't look like her, an ancestor to Diantha. People do also speculate that Irida could be an ancestor to Serena. This is just speculation. It's not as obvious as Paulina being the ancestor to Diantha. And also, people speculate that the guy, I'm blanking on his name, but he is, there's going to be a picture of him up, and he is the guardian of the noble Avalugg. He is an ancestor to Wolfric. Now, the biggest thing that I always thought was kind of a cool reference to Mega Evolution Legends Arceus was that there's actually a rock. It's got these waterfalls around it, and it looks just like a Mega Gardevoir. And you might look at it and go, Lumi, that's a stretch. That doesn't look like a Mega Gardevoir. Right below that rock, you can find an Alpha Gardevoir. I don't care what any of you say, that's a Mega Gardevoir rock, and I do think that if anything, that was a hint right there. Now, that's kind of where we leave Legends Arceus, and we move into Scarlet and Violet. So first off, in Scarlet and Violet, there is the fact that Area Zero, the crystals in it do look very similar to the ultimate weapon. Here they are side by side, so you can kind of see for yourself. You know, they've got that glossy, but also kind of rainbow-like hue to them. Maybe this is nothing. Maybe this is nothing. But, you know, that is interesting. It also, frankly, could just be a case of they're both connected to Infinity Energy, and this is kind of what Infinity Energy looks like in a physical form. So they could be unrelated, they could be related. I did just want to throw that out there. Another big example of a Kalos reference in these games is the fact that the language teacher in Scarlet and Violet, Salvatore, is actually from Kalos. This is never explicitly stated, but he says bonjour and uses French words. So I'm guessing he's from France, and the Pokemon equivalent to France happens to be Kalos, so I'd say he's from Kalos. I think that argument checks out. Interestingly enough, Scarlet and Violet is set in Paldea, which is based on the Iberian Peninsula. Now, if you look at real-world geography, the Iberian Peninsula neighbors France. So, hypothetically, Paldea neighbors Kalos. Now, you cannot see what neighbors the Paldea region, but you can get very close to that border, and when you get close to that border, there will be these 3 trainers around these towers, and each of them will use dragon Pokemon. They're clearly all connected because, like, one says, I am the dragon's breath, one says it's their wings, or something to that effect. They're all parts of a dragon, I guess. But all 3 of these trainers use 1 Pokemon each. One uses a Goodra, one uses a Dragalge, and one uses a Noivern. So, for those who don't know, there are only 4 dragon types in Kalos, and that is Dragalge, Noivern, Goodra, and Tyrantrum. And Tyrantrum isn't in the Paldea region. You can't get it in Scarlet and Violet. So I think it's pretty interesting that not only are these 3 characters who are supposed to be connected using Kalos-only Mons, but they're situated right by the border of Paldea and whatever it neighbors. And if we look at real-world geography, its neighbor should be Kalos, or at least a southern part of Kalos. That's interesting. Definitely a hint, in my opinion. But yeah, some more obvious things that we see here is, first off, the Ash Greninja retcon. For those who don't know, I don't know how you don't know this. Maybe you're living under a rock. No shame in that, though. Patrick Star does, and he's a great character. But Greninja used to have an alternate form called Ash Greninja, and basically when it would defeat a Pokemon, its ability Battle Bond would activate, and it would transform into this Ash Greninja form. It would get like a stat buff, and it would also have Water Shuriken do more. But this was actually removed in Scarlet and Violet. When Greninja's Battle Bond ability activates after it defeats Pokemon, it's just to raise its attack, special attack, and speed. That's it. There's no form change, but they still kind of reference the form a little bit in a painting that is actually located in your rival Nemona's house. So that's very interesting that they scrapped it and also still kind of referenced it, you know, immortalized it. It's kind of made me think that Greninja might be getting a Mega Evolution, but I've done a video on that, so you can check that out. It'll be up there, actually. Sorry, my bad. Next, we have the designs of Roaring Moon and Iron Valiant. These designs are very clearly taking inspiration from the Mega Evolutions these Pokemon are paradoxes of. Roaring Moon is very similar to Mega Salamence. Iron Valiant is very similar to Mega Gardevoir and Mega Gallade. And if that's not enough for you, Roaring Moon's Pokedex entry even states that it has, it might have a connection to a certain phenomenon that occurs in another region. That's clearly Mega Evolution, guys. Come on. What are we, 5? That's Mega Evolution. Then when we got our DLC for Scarlet and Violet, the Hidden Treasure of Area Zero, we had a few things here as well. First off, Serana does have a Scarf of Honedge on him, so, you know, there you go, that's another Kalos Pokemon. And the interesting thing about that is he doesn't use a Honedge. Honedge isn't even in the games of Scarlet and Violet, so that's a little sus, right? And then we also do have the fact that all the main legendaries, like box legendaries, were added into Scarlet and Violet, except for one trio. Can you guess who it was? Because if you said Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde, you'd be exactly right. Now, this doesn't always mean something, but an interesting comparison to that is in Crown Tundra, when we got all the fossil Pokemon back, they left out 2, and that was Rampardos and Bastiodon, the Gym 4 fossils, and then we ended up actually getting Gym 4 remakes. So, again, just kind of interesting. Lastly, I do want to talk about Pokemon Home. Pokemon Home did add, because they've kind of changed the little sprites of Pokemon, and Pokemon Home did add an Ash Greninja sprite, also Mega Evolution sprites, so Mega Charizard X, all this, Primal Reversions like Groudon and Kyogre, and even Eternal Flower Floette, which is obviously a big deal in the Kalos games. It's the Floette that AZ used. There was supposed to be an event of it, people think, because there's coding for it. It even has its own exclusive move. It's got a higher stat total than other Floette, but they never gave it out. So, you know, will we finally get Eternal Flower Floette? I don't know, but I think that's very interesting. You know, they didn't do this for cosplay Pikachu and stuff like that, to my knowledge. So, do with that information what you will. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Anything I missed that is a potential reference to Kalos, let me know in the comments below. Again, like, subscribe, hit the bell, let me know in the comments. And until next time, I'll see all of you later.